The orbital forge of Orthal V Academy was not a room. It was a cathedral. 1,000 meters of vaulted alloy and gravity-suspended platforms shimmered under artificial auroras. In the heart of that vast space, furnaces roared with plasma drawn directly from the gas giant below, painting everything in swirls of gold and blue. Cadets from 27 worlds stood at their stations, each surrounded by humming instruments and proud instructors. The scent of ionized metal filled the air, sharp, sterile, alive. And then there were the humans, 5 of them, unarmed, under-equipped, standing at the edge of the hall beside a workstation that looked more like a crate than a forge. Their instructor hadn't come. Humanity had no representative on the Council of Instructors yet. They were too new, too raw, too human. Arya Solon stood at the front of that small group. 19.
Slim.
Her dark hair tied back into a clean braid that reached her shoulder blades. Her uniform was plain, her hands wrapped with dull gray polymer cloth to hide the faint scars. She said nothing. Around her, the air shimmered with the hum of forges activating. The Yolkarans, 6-limbed insectoids, clicked their mandibles as their molten crystal coalesced into refractive armor blades. The Selrun floated near vats of liquid mercury, shaping them telekinetically into perfect fractal daggers. The Tloth, cold-blooded reptilians, raised obsidian spines grown in chemical baths. Every race forged their weapon of tradition. Every race performed a ritual. And the humans? They watched. At the far end of the hall, a figure of glittering facets approached. Instructor Valketh, the crystalline being whose body refracted the forge light like living diamond. Each step resonated through the metal floor. Cadets. Valketh's voice rang out, half melodic, half grinding, amplified through the hall. Today you will forge the weapon that embodies your species' essence. Not merely a tool, a philosophy, a reflection of your nature in steel, crystal, or thought. Dozens of alien heads turned toward the instructor, shimmering with pride. Each species must craft with what it is. The fireborn use flame, the cold-blooded use stone, the psychic use mind, the machine-born, circuitry. His crystalline face shifted, refracting the forge light toward the humans. And the humans will attempt to keep up. Laughter rippled across the platforms, trills, clicks, chirps, all versions of amusement. Aria's group said nothing. Her teammate, Corporal Dean Hollis, muttered beside her. He's got a new joke every week. Ignore it, Arya said softly, not looking up. She was watching the tools. Not the aliens, the tools. Each station had equipment tailored to their biology. Heat-resistant manipulators, gravity filters, psychic dampeners. The human station had a slab of polymer composite, 2 manual grinders, and a box of unmarked materials. She ran a hand across the surface. The polymer was warm from the nearby forges. Her reflection stared back, eyes shadowed by the orange glow. "We make do," she whispered. Valketha's crystalline hand gestured wide. "Begin your forging. Let your weapon show the Academy who you are." The hall erupted in light and noise. Flames roared.
Crystals sang.
Plasma vents screamed like thunder. The temperature rose, shimmering waves distorting the air. One by one, the alien cadets began shaping the essence of their civilizations. Luminous swords, monomolecular claws, fractal shields that folded into their wielder's skin. Humanity's corner stayed quiet. Arya sat down on the floor, cross-legged, staring at the materials box. Inside were scraps of alloy, synthetic resin, and a single shard of something pale.
Curved.
Smooth to the touch, but not metal.
Bone.
She lifted it gently. It was from the survival exercise a month ago, a fragment of a Tark beast, a 6-meter predator from the jungle moon Eliath 4. They'd been dropped there for a week with minimal supplies. Most cadets had panicked. Arya hadn't. She'd killed one of those things alone, with a sharpened stone and its own broken fong. Now, that memory pulsed quietly in her hand. "You're not really thinking of using that, are you?" Dean asked, uneasy. Arya's gaze didn't move. "Everything's a tool if you're desperate enough." She found a piece of basalt in the supply crate, rough, uneven. She knelt, setting the bone fragment across her knee, and began grinding.
Scrape, scrape, scrape.
The hall's metallic symphony swallowed most sounds, but not hers. Somehow, that soft rhythm of stone against bone began to cut through the air. Across the room, a Yolkaran stopped working, antennae twitching. Then a cloth. Then another. One by one, eyes turned toward the human corner, toward the girl kneeling in silence, sharpening something primitive, deliberate, patient.
Scrape, scrape.
Each stroke precise, controlled, ritualistic. The forge's light glinted along the edge, forming in her hands, faint, white, deadly. Instructor, one cadet hissed. She's not forging. She's carving. Valkath approached, his crystalline steps chiming across the metal floor. He loomed over her, voice cold. Human. This is a forge, not a burial ground. You were told to create a weapon worthy of your species. This, he pointed, refracted light flaring off the bone, is an animal's corpse. Arya didn't look up. It's what's left, she said quietly. You mock this institution. She paused, exhaled once, and ran the stone one last time along the bone's edge. The sound sang, a whisper of finality. Then she set the basalt aside and stood, holding the bone shard at arm's length. No, instructor. I honor it. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The furnace light flickered as if the station itself was holding its breath. Even Valkatha's refracted glow dimmed. She placed the bone on the forge table, perfectly balanced, the edge gleaming with a soft ivory sheen. Around them, the sound of molten metal and humming crystals continued. But every nearby cadet's eyes stayed fixed on the human girl, the one who forged nothing and yet somehow made something. Valkath turned away, crystalline facets flickering in disapproval. Primitive superstition, he murmured. A waste of time. But when he glanced back once more, he saw her hands, steady, unshaken, wrapped in gray cloth darkened by sweat and faint specks of blood. And for a fraction of a second, he hesitated. Because there was no arrogance in her face. Only the quiet, unblinking calm of someone who didn't need a forge to make a weapon. The next rotation in the forge hall began under a haze of amber light. The orbital station drifted through Orthal V's upper clouds, storms of violet lightning crawling beneath the viewing platforms. The alien cadets gathered early, whispering, their voices merging into a low, insect-like buzz. At the far end of the hall, the humans worked in silence. Arya sat at the same crate of a workstation, her bone shard resting on a simple cloth beside her. It looked out of place amid the glowing weapons and hovering constructs around her, a fragment of something living in a room full of dead metal. But the silence didn't last long. The Selrun were first to sneer. They floated in their shimmering graph fields, their transparent skin rippling with light, as one of them called out. Primitive craftsmanship, human. Did you plan to scare the enemy with superstition? The Yolkarans joined in, their clicking laughter echoing like breaking glass. Maybe she ran out of rocks to bang together. Across the hall, even the cloth hissed amusement. Arya didn't look up. She adjusted the bone's edge with a small strip of ceramic abrasive, motion calm, methodical. Dean bristled beside her. Ignore them? Again? Always, Arya murmured. They think it's a joke. Good. She flipped the shard once, checking the balance. Let them laugh while they still can. The laughter died when Valkath entered. The crystalline instructor's body refracted the forge light like a prism of judgment. He stopped at the center of the hall, raising one faceted arm. The forges dimmed at his gesture, leaving only the dull glow of the molten crucibles. Cadets, Valkath began, voice echoing through the chamber. The first forges are complete. Present your works. One by one, species stepped forward. The Selrun revealed their light blades, fluid constructs of pure energy shaped by mind. The Yolkarans displayed crystal spears, geometric perfection that shimmered in fractal symmetry. The cloth hissed proudly, unveiling serrated obsidian sabers, each tooth glinting with acid. Each weapon sang of its maker's civilization, polished, advanced, beautiful. Then Valketha's gaze shifted toward the human section. And you humans? Let us see the result of your improvisation. Dean hesitated, glancing at Arya. She was already standing, expression unreadable, bone shard wrapped in her hand like a relic. When she stepped forward, the sound of her boots on the metal floor seemed unnaturally loud. She held the weapon up under the forge's light. No glow, no hum, no advanced technology. Just a sliver of bleached ivory, its edge whisper-sharp, its curve smooth and deliberate. For a moment no one spoke. Then the hall erupted. Is that bone? She forged death. Humans truly are regressives. Valketha's crystalline body flickered with what passed for anger. Explain this mockery, Cadet Solon. Arya didn't flinch. It's a blade. That is a corpse fragment. A blade is what you make when you can't afford anything else, she said quietly. And it cuts just as deep. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. Something in its tone made the jeers falter. Valketha's crystalline facets shifted. You misunderstand the purpose of this exercise. You were told to forge a symbol of your species' spirit. I did, Arya said. Then enlighten us. What does a bone mean to your kind? Her gaze lifted to meet his, and for the first time, her expression hardened. It means what's left when everything else is gone. The forge hall went utterly still. We survive. We adapt. We rebuild from whatever remains. Even bones. Valketh tilted his head slightly, refracted eyes narrowing. Savage sentimentality. No, she said. Memory. The words hit something in the air, a pulse, subtle but heavy. Every alien who had ever studied human warfare, human colonization, or human resilience felt it. That strange, terrifying persistence. They could crush a world, and the survivors would rise with sticks and sharpened stones, and somehow win. Arya set the bone shard down on the presentation stand. Its edge caught the light, gleaming like something alive. When the forge burns out, when the machines stop working, when the metal runs dry, we'll still have this. And the will to use it. Valketh was silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, voice thin as glass. You mistake stubbornness for strength. Arya gave a small nod. They usually look the same from the losing side. The hall went dead silent again. Even the forges seemed to hush. The instructor turned sharply, his crystalline body refracting sparks. Enough. We will test these symbols tomorrow. Until then, dismissed. As the cadets dispersed, whispers filled the hall. Some curious, some uneasy. A Yolkran who had mocked earlier now avoided her gaze. The Selrun floated silently away. Dean let out a breath, shaking his head. You just declared war on half the class. Arya didn't answer. She looked down at her creation, a shard of death turned into meaning, and wrapped it carefully in cloth. Outside the forge hall's wide observation windows, the gas giant raged on, endless storms churning, violent and beautiful. Somewhere in that chaos, reflected in the glass, Arya's eyes looked the same.
The forge hall was quiet again. Too quiet. For 3 standard days, the alien cadets had been allowed to refine their weapons before the testing trials. Most of them did so loudly, every hour filled with the hum of plasma torches, the chatter of engineers, the psionic hum of telekinetic shaping. But in the far corner, at Workstation 17, there was only the slow rhythm of breath. Arya Solon sat cross-legged before her table, her hands bare now, the polymer bandages stripped away. Her fingers were thin, calloused, and burned along the edges from a dozen small accidents, reminders of the survival moon. Before her lay the bone fragment. It glowed faintly in the forge light, its once rough surface polished to a mirror sheen. The curve had been refined, elegant, balanced, neither crude nor ornamental. It wasn't just a weapon now. It was art in denial of its own existence. The door to the forge hall hissed open. Instructor Valketh entered, his crystalline body scattering pale blue light across the walls. Behind him drifted several observers, alien officers, counselors, and recorders. They came to watch the humans' attempt at symbolism. Cadets, Valketh announced, his voice resonating through the walls like struck glass. Today begins the evaluation of your forges. Your creations will be tested for endurance, sharpness, focus, and meaning. He paused deliberately on the last word, turning his gaze toward Arya. Meaning, he repeated, almost like a challenge. Each species demonstrated in turn. The Selrune's light blades sliced effortlessly through armor plates. The Tloth sabers burned with corrosive edge. The Yolkaran's crystal lances sang at ultrasonic frequencies. Then Valketh turned to the human corner. Cadet Solon, step forward. Arya rose, her posture calm. The faintest breath fogged the air as she lifted the cloth from her blade. A whisper spread through the hall. The bone seemed almost alive, a pale arc of something ancient, sharpened so precisely it caught light like a thread of glass. You have refined your artifact, Valketh observed. Tell us what you have learned in doing so. Arya turned the shard in her hand, the light sliding over it. That metal remembers nothing, she said. But bone remembers everything. Explain. Every cut leaves a mark. Every strike leaves a story. When I sharpened this, I could still see where it was broken, where the beast's sinew tore away. It's alive in a way steel never will be. Valketh tilted his crystalline head. Romantic superstition. No, she replied softly. Perspective. She set the bone on the testing stand. Beside her, Dean shifted uncomfortably. You sure about this? He whispered. If it breaks, she murmured. If it doesn't, maybe they'll understand. Valketh gestured to a Tloth assistant. Apply the standard density trial. The reptilian cadet hissed and swung his own saber at the bone with controlled precision, enough to shatter steel. The sound that followed wasn't shattering. It was ringing. The bone had absorbed the blow and deflected it, the edge still perfect, the saber's teeth now chipped. A murmur rippled through the audience. Impossible, the Tloth hissed. Arya lifted the shard. There was not even a scratch. You said to make a weapon that reflects what we are, she said, meeting Valketh's crystalline eyes. That's us. We don't yield. We absorb. We remember. The instructor's crystalline face fractured the light, a flicker of something, not anger this time, but uncertainty. Where did you obtain this bone? From the Tark on Eliath IV. That is a predator that hunts through storm and radiation. It is not natural material. Neither are we, Arya said. The audience stirred again, confusion, fascination, even a trace of discomfort. A Selrune observer floated closer. You humans glorify death. Arya turned toward him, her expression unreadable. No, she said. We just don't hide from it. Silence. Even the furnaces seemed to dim. Valketh stepped closer, his crystalline body towering over her. You believe this fragment symbolizes your kind? Arya looked up at him. It's not a symbol. It's a reminder that everything dies, and that we can turn even that into something that protects us. She pressed the blade lightly against the stand. The edge sank halfway into the reinforced metal before stopping, clean, effortless. It cuts not because it's sharp, she said, but because it wants to. A whisper went through the hall. Something primal stirred in those who watched, not fear, not awe, but an unfamiliar understanding. The Selrune, beings of pure intellect, shifted uneasily in their grav field. The Yolkaran's antennae drew back. Even the Tloth, a warlike species bred for violence, kept their distance. Valketh stared down at her. Do you know what you have done, human? Arya set the bone back on the stand. I did what the assignment asked. You turned a corpse into a creed. Then maybe that's what we are. For a long time, Valketh said nothing. The glow within his crystalline core dimmed. Then, quietly, proceed to the final trial tomorrow. He turned and left, his footfalls like breaking glass. The other instructors followed. The forge hall emptied until only the humans remained. Dean exhaled slowly. You just scared a dozen species with a dead animal. Arya smiled faintly, staring at the bone. No, she said. I reminded them we're still alive. Outside the panoramic windows, Orthel V's atmosphere rolled in silent storms, violent, endless, alive. Lightning illuminated Arya's reflection on the glass, calm, small, human, and holding, in her reflection's hand, the shape of something that no longer looked like bone, but like history. The dawn cycle aboard the Orthal V Academy station began with silence. Artificial light crept across the metallic floors, bathing the forge hall in soft blue radiance. Every workstation gleamed, rows of exotic weapons awaiting their final trials. At the center stood Arya Solon, her hands clasped behind her back, the shard of bone laid carefully on the test dais. It no longer looked fragile. Under the cold light, it gleamed with an edge that seemed impossibly alive, a ghost of something that had once hunted and killed. And now it waited to be tested again. Instructor Velketh entered with a procession of observers, members of the Galactic Council, officers, and several alien species liaisons. He spoke with the measured calm of a commander before battle. Cadets, the final evaluation begins. Today, your creations will demonstrate more than durability or sharpness. They will show the truth of your species. He turned his crystalline head slightly. Some have chosen elegance, others power, a few complexity. His refracted gaze fixed on Arya. And one, apparently, has chosen death. The hall murmured. Dozens of eyes, multifaceted, luminous, alien, turned toward the single human standing by her shard. Arya said nothing. Velketh gestured. Step forward, human cadet Solon. Present your explanation. Enlighten us as to why you insulted the sacred tradition of the forge with that. She took a slow breath, then moved. Each step echoed through the hall, steady, unhurried. She reached the center and lifted the shard with both hands, not raised high like a weapon, but held flat, reverently. You said the assignment was to forge a blade that represents our species, she began. This is mine. A bone. What's left after everything else is gone. The aliens watched in silence. She set the shard on the black metal pedestal. The contrast was stark. Pale bone against dark alloy, organic against engineered. Humans weren't born with claws or fangs or armor. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or smartest. Her voice stayed low, calm. So we learned to make use of what was left. We learned to turn anything, even what killed us, into something we could wield. She traced a finger along the blade's edge, and light caught in it like water. This came from a beast that nearly killed me. I didn't forge it from pride. I forged it to remember. To remember what? Velketh asked, his tone more curious than cruel now. That survival isn't about strength. It's about what you do when you've already lost. The hall was still. Even the forges seemed to dim, as if the machinery itself were listening. Every scar teaches. Every death leaves something behind. You can melt down metal or polish crystal, but bone, she lifted it again, eyes steady. Bone carries history. It's honest. It doesn't pretend to be anything else. So you would have us believe this shard of corpse is a philosophy? Arya smiled faintly, the kind of expression that didn't reach her eyes. It's not philosophy. It's us. Dean shifted at the back of the human group, whispering under his breath. You're going to make him combust. Arya continued. You asked for a symbol. Every one of them, she gestured toward the alien cadets, built something beautiful to represent what they think they are. We built something ugly to remind us what we truly are. And what is that, human? Velketh demanded. The species that survives. Her words dropped like a weight into the silence. Velketh moved forward, crystalline facets shimmering with slow, deliberate light. You would define your people by endurance alone? Endurance, she said, isn't the absence of pain. It's the mastery of it. He studied her quietly, then gestured toward the testing drone. Then show us. Let your philosophy prove itself. A mechanical arm descended from the ceiling, a gleaming structure tipped with a plasma-forged alloy blade. Its heat shimmered through the air. Valketh commanded, "The test. Your creation must withstand a strike from the plasma edge." Arya nodded once. The bone shard was placed on the testing pedestal. The arm descended. Fast. Precise. The strike landed. A burst of light flared, and then silence. When the smoke cleared, the plasma blade had split at its edge. The bone shard lay untouched. For a long heartbeat, no one moved. Then whispers began. "It shouldn't be possible. Organic matter cannot." "How?" Valketh raised his hand for silence. The glow within his crystalline chest flickered faintly. "You have reinforced it somehow." Arya shook her head. "No. I cleaned it. I polished it. Nothing more." "Then explain." She looked at the bone, the faint reflection of her face in its surface. It was part of something that refused to die easily. It was built for survival, shaped by violence, tempered by hunger. "All I did was listen to what it already wanted to be." Valketha's light dimmed again. He took a slow step forward. "You frighten me, human." Arya tilted her head slightly. "Good. That means you understand." The alien observers murmured, not with scorn this time, but with quiet unease. The hall was silent except for the hum of cooling systems. For the first time, the Academy saw what they had mocked for weeks. Not a primitive species clinging to relics, but a civilization that turned loss into power. Valketh straightened, crystalline facets flickering with muted reflection. "This weapon will be preserved in the Academy's archive," he said finally. "It is instructive." Arya inclined her head slightly. "That's all we ever wanted to be." She turned and walked away, leaving the shard gleaming on its stand, pale and still. The others watched her go, the sound of her footsteps fading into the vast, echoing forge hall. When the doors closed behind her, Valketh looked down at the bone again. He saw his own reflection in it, distorted, faint, but unmistakable. And for the first time in his long crystalline existence, he wondered if perfection was the wrong thing to worship,